I do have a screenshot here that was emailed in with the question here. So we can see this is a renko based system here, and I will try and summarize the question as best I can. So if you note, there's two moving averages here, right? A 50 and a 200. So there we go, the black and the white line. So when those cross and the bars close, below both moving averages there, I would assume that probably happens pretty quickly there. But in any case, so when you get the crossover point and you get a renko bar closing below both moving averages, then that is your initial entry there, right? With a wider profit target and stop loss. So I think this is where I should probably pull up the text here. And let's see here. All right, so we're using a 40 tick profit and an 8 tick stop. Let's see. Well, an 8 tick stop above or below the 50, right? So yeah, so we have example of a short trade here, right? So it'd be 8 ticks above the SMA 50 there, right? But if that trade is stopped out, then there are these continuation trades here. So we actually have an example of a stop out, I think. So where price, it kind of looks like price came up, and this is the ES. So I guess we'll just, this screenshot's trying to say that, right, the stop loss got hit there on that one bar. And then we have a continuation signal here. So if the renko bars just need to close below the 50 and the 200 again, and then boom, and then you get another set of signals here, right? So you can see that there are a bunch of signals on here. So that's just kind of a secondary part of the question, would be cleaning up these signals here, so you don't have just this continuous run of signals there. Right. And then, so as far as the continuation trades, it looks like it got stopped out again right here, and then again the bars close below both moving averages, so another continuation signal, so on and so forth there. Right. So again, this is a multi-part question here. So we have an initial 40 tick profit, and an 8 tick stop loss, or an 8 tick offset below the SMA 50 or above, right, depending on the direction of the SMA 50, right? So looks like that's going to make a somewhat wide stop. But then for the continuation, well, I don't know. I get whatever it is, right? The continuation. 2 points or 8 ticks here. Yeah. So those profit targets and stop loss are to tighten up there for those quick little scalp trades on the continuation trades. So in order for BlackBird to know what size profit target and stop loss to use, right? So whether it's using 40 ticks in this SMA 50, or whether BlackBird should be using this 8 tick profit target and stop, BlackBird needs something to tell it that, hey, you need to adjust this, right? Right. No piece of software knows automatically what to do. So we can use the BloodHound signals to do this. So we're going to create an initial signal, and we'll also create a continuation trade signal. Right. So we need 2 separate signals here, and then we can use those 2 different signals within BlackBird to we can use them in BlackBird. So the initial signal will fire off this 40 tick, right, and SMA based stop loss, profit target and stop loss. And then if BlackBird sees this continuation trade signal, then it'll know, okay, let's tighten up the profit target to 8 ticks and the stop loss to 8 ticks, right? So today we're going to build those two signals there, right? The initial signal and the continuation signal. And then tomorrow we'll plug that all into BlackBird and see how to set up a trailing roll in the profit target and stop loss. So, and we'll use a trailing roll to tighten up that profit target to 8 ticks and stop loss to 8 ticks. Let's see here. So again, the initial signal is essentially when these two moving averages cross each other, and then we have a bar that closes below it, right? And then it looks like we're going to have a bunch of continuation signals after that. So let's see here. All right, I think that's enough. So let me finish. Let me find, or I should say, a spot. Here we go. All right. So here is in an initial long, somewhere around there. Let's see. Actually, I think I might have. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let me reverse my colors here. That way they kind of match up with the screenshot that was sent in. There we go. All right. So here's our 50, and here's our 200. So we did have a cross down, but the bars never closed below both, I don't think. Oh, no, we did. Okay. So we do actually have an initial signal down. There we go. Let's see if we have some continuation. Yeah, so here's some continuation signals. Let me grab that. Right, there we go. So there's a continuation. And then it looks like we got another one here. There we go. So there's another one. And, a couple more. So I think that's good enough there. And I want to see if we can find some shorts here. All right, so here's our cross down. So we definitely have an initial signal there. And then, yeah, looks like we have a continuation there. And another one. So there we go. All right, I think that's good enough. All right, so I'm going to work with the long side here. And next step, let's get BloodHound open and get today's workshop file started. All right, so I'm going to put in the file name first. There we go. All right, hit save. Okay, so good. Now that we have a file name established, then all of our work will get saved to this file here. Let's see. I think I will call this something like that. There we go. So initial signal versus continuation signal. Right. All right. So the primary, the primary condition, right, that is the initial signal, right, is our moving average crossover there. So let's do that. Let's set that up first here. All right. So from our solvers, let's grab a crossover solver. Like so. All right, there we go. So the 50 crossing over the 200. So next, let me open this up a little bit. All right, so we just adjust our SMA periods there. Pretty straightforward. There we go. Just go up to the period here for the SMA. Adjust that. Same thing for input B. Go in there. We'll adjust this to a 200 period now. And there we go. All right. So these initiate our initial signal, right? And also kind of tell us, the direction of the trades, of the continuation trades. So yeah. All right. So the next thing is we need to make sure that the renko is closing right on above or below both moving averages there. So it seems like probably you only need to compare the close of the bar to the SMA 50, but I don't know much about this system at all. So I'll just err on the side of caution here, and we'll compare the close to both moving averages here. So, all right, let's grab a comparison solver, and we're going to compare the close, right, to the SMA 50. So input A, we're going to adjust this to price, right? And then the default bar price is the closing price. So we're all done there. And then input B, that's going to be our SMA 50. So let's go in here and adjust that period. All right, we have that, you know, and there we go, right? So as long as the close is above the SMA 50, we get a long output, right? And if it's below the SMA 50, we're getting a short. So there's that part. So now let's also compare the close to the SMA 200. So to take a little shortcut here, we can copy what we've done and paste it on there. And let's adjust the name to the 200 like so. And then also go into input B and adjust that period there. All right. Now we need both of these conditions right at the same time, like so. There. All right. Yeah, so there we go. So we can see this one bar here, right, with a short output. So that kind of confirms, right? Let's see. Well, actually, we need one more thing here. Actually, this doesn't confirm a short because we're only comparing the close to the two SMAs. We're not actually validating or verifying that the SMA 50 is above or below the 200. So, right, this crossover, right, it only gives us one signal output here. So there's two approaches I can do. I can actually create another comparison solver and compare the 50 to the 200 with a comparison solver, or I can take this crossover and I can plug it into a function node here. I can plug it into the toggle node, right? So either way works, like so. And so if I plug it into a toggle node here, now this toggle node is telling me whether the 50 period is above or below the 200 period, right? So I'm getting the same output from this toggle node as I would from a comparison solver. All right, so either one works fine. And let's see here. I'm going to move this back here, connect that in. We'll connect this in. So there we go. So right now we can see we actually have a little more filtering. So, all right, the SMA 50 is now below the 200, but all these closing prices are above, right? So now we have no output here. And now we actually have a signal on, right, the first bar that we get this, where the 50 is above the 200 there, right? So, all right, so a little filtering going on there. Let's see here. So something I have to figure out is are the renkos always closing above or below both moving averages for the initial signal, right? And you know what? Actually, I think this confirms it here, right? So we had the moving averages crossing down here, and right, price could have, let's see, what bar would have been right here. So after this one, right, price could have actually just fallen off a cliff here, right? And then eventually, right, the Renkos would have closed below. So it would have taken several bars here. So yeah, technically it is possible that we could have a little bit of a delay of the initial signal after these moving averages cross. Yeah, and then a few bar delay before the bars close below. So well, actually, yeah, this here is a good example. Yeah. So all right. So so now I need to figure out. Well, I do have this working here. I'm just trying to think if there's a little cleaner way of doing this. So the easy way to do this is we can grab a function node here and grab a signal blocker, connect it in there, right? And then we need to block for a lot. Probably, let's see if, yeah, I guess I'll just put in 500 there. So using a signal blocker, cleaned everything up, right? So here's my initial signal, and let me shrink this up a lot now. And as I go through here, right, I don't have any more long signals. And then, right, the moving averages cross, so there's our initial short signal. There we go, they cross again, long signal. All right, so let me go back to the beginning of the chart here. Let's see if I have any long signals in here. No, it doesn't look like it. All right, so what I'm testing for, just to be clear again, is I'm making sure that this 500 bar, blocking signals is enough bars, right? Because we can see that sometimes we do get these really, really long runs here, right? We can see the 50 is above the 200 for this really, really long run here. So, is it possible to get more than 500 bars, right, before the market pulls back enough that we, get another crossover of our moving averages, right? Yeah, because if the market keeps our moving averages crossed for a long enough period for more than 500 bars, then we'll get a secondary initial signal, and we don't want that. So just making sure that 500 bars is long enough. All right, well, hold on. Let's just check this one last run here. Yeah, okay, that looks good. All right, so again, what I was looking for is, right, here's our initial long signal, and I was checking to see if any other long signals showed up, while the SMA 50 was above the SMA 200 there. All right, yeah, so it looks like 500 bars is good. Yeah, good enough there. All right, let's see here. All right, so I'll just call this our initial signal. There we go. And so now let's work on these continuation signals here. And all right, so again, there's probably a couple of ways you can do this. The approach I'm going to take here is I'm going to use a crossover solver here. So I'm going to look for price to cross above, or well, actually just to cross over this SMA 50 here, right? So we can see we have this long output here, already. So if I add a crossover solver, right, checking to see when the close crosses over the SMA 50, right, when it crosses down, this short cross down signal, right, it gets filtered out, right, it gets filtered out here by the rest of the system. So, but when the close crosses above the SMA 50, right, that generates a long output. So that long cross up signal will show up here. All right. So let's see here. All right, so let me create another crossover here. All right, there we go. Trying to get both of these continuation signals here on the chart. There we go. Okay. So now, as I set up this crossover, we can see the signals developing on the chart there. All right, so let's give this a name here. All right, so we're checking the close crossing over the SMA 50. So again, input A, that will be price. Let's set this to the bar prices there, right? The closing bar price. Input B, that will be the SMA 50. There we go. And there we have it, right? So this is a unfiltered crossover, right? So there's our cross downs and our cross ups, cross downs, cross ups. So now we can, we'll need another AND node here. And let's see here. I'm just going to connect those in like so. And there we have it, right? Continuation signal, continuation there. And, oh, look here. So, let's see. Oh, oops, yeah. Okay, yeah, I was wondering about this. So if you notice, right, I didn't connect this component in here. So, right, this component here was checking to make sure that the SMA 50 was on the right side of the SMA 200. And I left that out. And so this long signal here, right, managed to slip in even though our 50 is below the 200. Right. So, so we do need to connect this in here. And actually, you know what? I could just do this. Yeah. Like that. So there we go. Right. So that removed that erroneous long continuation signal there, or that incorrect one there. Right. Let's see here. So there's that one. And here's the next one, and a bunch more. Yeah, we have a bunch more there. All right, so I'm just going to look through the chart, and yeah, let's see here. Well, all right. So I was kind of wondering about this. So remember, this was an initial. Right, so we got the arrows here to tell us that this is an initial short signal, but it's showing up as a continuation signal. So we do need to fix this here. Right, so we'll come back to that. So this initial long signal here is not showing up with our continuation signals. So that's good. That's good. Let's see. So no initial signals showing up in our continuation signals. So, here we go. Okay. So we have a cross up of our moving averages. So this is an initial signal. and it is showing up right in our continuations here. So, all right. And, oh, there we go. Okay, so here's 2 spots. So I'll just mark these here. So that is an initial signal, and that is an initial signal. So let's get those removed from the continuation signals here. All right. So this will be just a quick, easy adjustment here, right? So remember, this is our initial signals here, essentially. So we know that secondary signals here, and let me just go in here and put some kind of a name in here, right? So this is like, the first signal, right? And these are the secondary signals, right? So we know the secondary signals need to come at the soonest would be 1 bar after an initial signal here. So what we can do is disconnect this and use a function node here. We're going to use a look back node, like so. And with the look back node, we can use this displacement function here. So this is already on. It's set to 1 already. So we don't need to make any adjustments here. And I do like to name these here so I know what they're doing, right? So we're displacing the signal, right, by 1 bar there. And so if I take this and connect it in, there we go. All of those initial signals have disappeared now. All right. And so let's take a look here and see what actually is happening, right? So I'll draw a little box here. All right, so there we go. So I put a little box showing where those signals lie currently. And now, if we look at this look back node, right, we can see, look, all the signals shifted over 1 bar. Right, so now that there's no long output on this initial signal bar, that means we can't get a secondary signal there, right? So same thing with this short, right? There's no signal on there. There we go. Let's make that a little wider, right? There's no short output on this initial signal bar coming out of the look back. So that means on our continuation signals, right, we can no longer get a signal there, right? We can only get continuation signals when there is an output here, right? So there. So let's see. Now also, right, one other thing that sometimes can be a problem. Usually it's not, but every once in a great while it might be. With the, when you're using the look back, you can see, look, we have a short output here after these two crossed each other, right? After the 2 moving averages crossed, we actually have a short output. So theoretically, it's possible to get a short continuation signal even though our moving averages are crossed, right? And so we can fix that easily here. Let's see here. I could just connect, I could connect this directly in to this AND node here. And that would take care of that. So, and let's take a look at why that works. All right. And all right. right, just a moment. I'm going to make this red racing stripe here a little brighter. And yeah, so the racing stripe opacity is set to 20. I'm going to brighten that up a little bit, set it to 30. There we go. So now we can't make any mistake here. All right. There. I'm going to shift that over a little bit. Okay. So why does, returning back to the question here, right? So why does taking this AND node and essentially connecting it in twice to this other AND node, right? So we have one connection going to this look back, and we have another direct connection going in there, right? So this we're looking at right now. We're looking at this direct connection right here, right? So that is our bottom square, right? So we can see the short signals here. And now let's look at our look back node. Let's connect that in, right? And that's our square above here, right? And with AND nodes, the only thing that comes out of an AND node is all the bars where all the signals overlap. So what comes out of this AND node here, and actually let's just temporarily disconnect that, and let's take a look. Let's connect this in, right? And you can see the only short outputs we have are where these two areas overlap, right? So there's no short here, and there's no short at the end here. So we're now isolated to just, these few bars in between here, right? So that's effectively what our look back node is doing there. It's eliminating a short output on the initial signal, but the output here, right, from the initial signal, it stops when the moving averages cross each other, right? It comes to an end. So it's clipping the end of our look back node, right? So remember our look back node here, right? It has a short output all the way over to here, but we want to clip this bar here, right? We want to clip this last bar off because the moving average is crossed. And so, right, and since the original initial signal here, or the unmodified one, right, it doesn't go all the way out. So it's clipping that end. And so when we use an AND node, right, it clips the first bar with the output, and it clips the last bar, and we're only left with what's in between there. So that's how we're cleaning up our continuation signals there. So now I can connect that in like so. And there we go. Those initial signals are now gone. All right, so let's get rid of those. There. Yeah. Well, all right, yeah, so it looks like my continuation signals disappeared on me, so let me just reload here, and uh-oh. All right, I might have gone too far. Let's take a look. All right, there's the crossovers. And oh, oops, okay. Yeah, so I did, all right. I did introduce a problem here. So, all right, so we're going to have to rethink this. So, right, so there is our renkos crossing above the 50, right? So that is the continuation. But this guy, here filtered that out. Let's see. All right, so this is going to take a little more complicated approach. Let's see here. All right. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to actually take the initial signal here and all right, there we go. So here's those initial signals. Oh, wait. Okay, that actually wasn't an initial signal. This one was. Okay, there we go. So let's see here. So I'm going to take the initial signal and I'm going to use the initial signal to actually block them on the continuation signals. Or let's connect that up. All right, so actually, here's the problem. So let's mark this. All right, yeah, so that's an initial signal. So we want to remove that from our continuation signals here. All right, so I think a trick I can do here, I don't think I've ever done this before since BloodHound version 2, but I can take my signals, plug it into an OR node, and with the OR node, I can invert that. I can invert that OR node, and what happens is, if we look at this, right there is now no long output here. So on this initial signal bar, there's no long output. And same thing for this short. Let's take a look at the initial signals. Right, so we have an initial signal short, and I should mark that here. There, right, and I've got this other one over here. So let's take a look at the OR node. So this initial signal short, right? There's no short output. So there you go. Initial signal short. There's no short output right on that bar there. So in theory, let's see if I'm correct here. I can connect this in here, and there we go. So we got the secondary signal now. All right. So good. We corrected that mistake there. And so that initial signal is gone. And let's see here. So that's the initial signal. Yep. Then this is the continuation. Right. So there we go. A follow-up. And so the initial signal would be like on this bar, I think. So there's a continuation, another continuation, another continuation. Yep. There we go. Continuation, continuation. All right. Nothing on the initial signal here. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. So this will definitely work for us. And that, all right, that was a simple solution as well. So great. All right. So there we have it. I think we have it. Now we need to separate these into two separate logic templates here, right? Yeah, but let me just continue to kind of scan through here and make sure everything looks good. I only want to, so right now our result node is connected to our secondary signals here, right? So our continuation signals. So I want to make sure that that is all we're seeing is continuation signals. Yeah, so there's initial signals right there marked. I don't see them. Continuation. Continuation. I think we have a bunch more. There we go. let's see here. Yeah, so that would be our initial signal right there. And let's see. Okay, there's an initial signal right there. Okay. Yep. All right. Yeah. So I think we're good. Let's take a look at the initial signals here. So yeah, there is our initial signal right there. Okay. Yeah. All right. So it's back to separating these two out. Remember, so for BlackBird, we need the initial signals to be separate from the continuation signals, right? So that way we have a separate continuation signal that can then be used to tighten up the profit target and stop loss there. So let's see here. So I'm just going to make a copy of this. And all right, so here is our second logic template, and let's see. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to go into the first logic template here, and we don't need these secondary or continuation signals. So let's just wipe those out. Then we're left with the primary signal, and there we have it. All right, and let's see here. I'm going to kind of center things here a little bit. There we go. And all right, so that's it for the BloodHound portion of this. So tomorrow we'll finish this up here, and let me pull up the question here. Yeah, so tomorrow we'll plug these into BlackBird, and we'll set up the initial profit target and stop loss, right? And then we'll set up a trailing roll so that when we get this continuation signal, when that comes in, right, we'll then adjust the profit target to 8 ticks and the stop loss to 8 ticks.